here in the council chambers. Now join me, please, for a moment of silence in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Beth.
Granquist.
Here.
Langy.
Here.
Merrill.
Here.
Dahlketter.
Here.
Murin.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Faust.
Here.
File.
Here.
Okay, we look for a motion to approve the consent agenda with one change. We have a proposal to remove item number 15 from the consent agenda and add to the regular agenda.
I'll make the motion with the removal of item 15 to the regular agenda.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative.
Okay, for a motion now to approve the full agenda with said change.
So move, Your Honor.
Okay, motion and second, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative.
Moves us to item number 18 under public hearings and related action. I would open this public hearing for the mayor and city council to consider submitting a grant application in the amount of $425,000 to the Nebraska Department of Economic Development for Community Development Block Grant funds for removal of architectural barriers and to make the current Miracle Skate Park handicap accessible. And to kick off discussion on this, Jan Merrill from the Northeast Nebraska Economic Development District. Evening, Jan.
Good evening. So on Monday, April 2nd, 2018, following a public hearing, the City Council approved a tourism development grant application requesting $350,000 to remove the architectural barriers in Miracle State Park. The very next day, on Tuesday, April 3rd, the Department of Economic Development released their 2018 grant guidelines and application guidelines, or deadlines. For the tourism grants, they now are allowing $425,000 instead of the $350,000, which is $75,000 more that the city of Norfolk is eligible to apply for. So it only made common sense. So we're here again asking for the same grant application with higher dollar amounts. So the city is now going to apply for $225,000 of CDBG funds for tourism development grant, of which $400,000 will be used to remove architectural barriers and to make the current Miracle State Park, which is located at 109 Lane Street in Norfolk, Nebraska, handicap accessible for both participants and spectators. $10,000 will be used for construction management and $15,000 will be used for general admin of the grant. The city of Norfolk will provide the 25% required match of $100,000 and $25,000 of the leverage funds. In addition to those funds, $19,500 will be donated. It has been donated, and that will also be used for leverage, and that's from separate entities and fundraising from the skate park group. So the total budget of the project with grant administration is $569,500. No persons will be displaced by this project.
Thanks, Jan. So essentially, because of the adjustment of the max award at the state level, we are adjusting our application. Correct.
The first grant was never applied for.
Okay. All right. Any questions, comments, council, on that? Okay. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Anyone else wishing to make public comment can do so now. Seeing none, I'll close the hearing and move to item number 19. Look for a motion to consider resolution number 2018-28, submitting a grant application in the amount of $425,000 to the Nebraska Department of Economic Development for Community Development Block Grant funds for removal of architectural barriers and to make the current Miracle Skate Park handicap accessible.
I'll offer for consideration Resolution 2018-28.
Second. Okay, motion and second. Any discussion on this, council? Questions, comments? Seeing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, Resolution 2018-28 is adopted.
Item number 20, we'll open this public hearing at the request of Carrie and Barbara Warner for final plan development of properties addressed as 307 North 31st Street and 306 and 310 North 32nd Street. And to kick off the discussion, Val, please.
Yes, thank you. This is the final plan development here. 2 meetings ago, I think you saw the preliminary plan development. This is the land north of Kenningstein by the tower between 31st and 32nd Street. No changes were made between the preliminary and the final PD, so what you approved at the preliminary is what you have before you as the final. And I believe Dick Johnson is here too if you have any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Val. Any questions or comments, concerns, council, on this? Dick, I think you're off the hook. Yeah, unless you want to talk to us. All right, if no further discussion, planning commission report, please.
On May 22nd, 2018, the Planning Commission reviewed the final plan development for Green Meadow 6th Edition at 307 North 31st and 306 and 310 North 32nd and approved the request on an 8-0 vote.
Okay. With that, I will close the hearing and move to item number 21. Look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5549, approving a final plan development for Green Meadow 6th Edition located at 307 North 31st Street and 306 and 310 North 32nd Street.
Your Honor, I'd move consideration of ordinance 5549.
Second?
Okay. Any discussion at all on this, council? Okay. All right, short title, please, Beth.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Madison County, Nebraska, amending the zoning district map of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, and providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and providing for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay, thanks, Beth. Please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5549 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I'd move, since this appears to be more a simple thing, that we suspend the rules and pass ordinance 5549 on second and third reading.
Second.
Okay, motion second, suspend the rules. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5549 carries on second and third.
Okay, that takes us to number 15. Item number 15, would look for a motion to consider approval of change order number 6 with Houseman Construction for the library expansion and renovation project, resulting in a net increase of $20,932.76.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. And Jessica, if you would give us some background on this, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Change order number 6 for the library project is covered by the contingency fund that's still in place for the construction project. It incorporates several changes. That nearly $21,000 covers 18 different changes that have happened over the last several months. Most of them fairly minor, some a little more significant than others. They includes additional studs and drywall work to conceal some columns and a good portion of the walls, revisions in the electrical and lighting systems, additional tube steel to support some countertops, and some brake metal to conceal some work behind the bathroom sinks, and also a revised door for the community room. So several things like that. And are there any questions that I can answer?
Please, any questions, council?
So is that kind of bringing us pretty close to the end of what we'll see for change orders in that?
I think we're going to see one more. There were some issues with the shades in the community room that I know caused some electrical changes and things like that. So I think we're going to see one more,
Okay.
not for, I don't think.
Minor.
Yeah. I
Minor,
think one more
minor.
minor change
Okay.
order.
Like minor.
Yeah.
It's not a credit?
Okay.
And thank you for all your hard work on this.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. It's a great team effort. Lots of hands involved. So this will be
Yeah.
fun to be a part of.
Several of us were able to take a tour of the library project this afternoon, and I think we can all agree the outcome was excellent. The journey was long to get there, and I know there was a lot of patience involved, but I think the final product is something the community can really be proud of. So
I agree.
appreciate all your hard work, coordinating and making this happen, and the hard work of staff
Yeah.
that was involved in it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. If no further discussion on this, I would ask for your vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Moves us to item number 22. I'd look for a motion to consider resolution number 2018-29 designating the Sunset Plaza Mall, excluding the lot containing the Target store, an enhanced employment area eligible for imposition of an occupation tax pursuant to the Community Development Law.
And I'd move resolution 2018-29.
Okay, motion second. And to give us some background on this, Andy, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll just kind of run through this briefly here as I see the owners of the Sunset Plaza are here today in the audience. And I can let them review their project a little bit. But just to give a little bit of background as to how we got here, we were approached, city staff were approached, and the City Council Economic Development Subcommittee were approached a number of months ago regarding some improvements that need to be done to the mall in an effort to help attract new tenants and give the place an overall facelift and do some various things to improve the overall building and the facade. And as we were going through this and going through their plan, I think a lot of education had been done on both part of staff and for elected officials as well to figure out how this works. And essentially what we're doing with this resolution is creating an enhanced employment area. It falls under the community development law, which is the same area that you find your tax increment financing laws as well. But under this part, it's an enhanced employment area. So it's required to have an investment of about $500,000 with the creation of at least 10 jobs to qualify for this section of law. It cannot overlap, to my knowledge, with this specifically with any other TIF or anything else with this part. It has to be outside of a blighted area. So this fits that. And really what this will be used for is to attract new tenants to the mall, to keep the mall healthy and viable, and because it is a pretty important part of our economy here in Norfolk that draws a lot of people to come to the community. So I think that's the goal of this. The City Council Subcommittee has met to discuss this with the owners of the mall and has recommended that this move forward for consideration to the council. What this resolution does is just create the area, and it makes this eligible for an occupation tax to be levied on basically the same items that a sales tax is levied. So it would be in addition to, just to make sure that is clear. The current plans call for a 1% occupation tax, which again would come in subsequent actions if this is approved tonight. So tonight you are creating a district with this resolution and making sure that this project is eligible for future actions, which could include an agreement with the developers, levying an occupation tax, and really getting the project nailed down and finalized. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. And again, the owners of the mall are here tonight to help answer questions for you and the public.
Okay. I think we'll bring Kyle up in just a minute, but just so we're all clear, because there has been some discussion on this and some public awareness of the proposal. What we are considering tonight is a first step in going down the road of creation of this district. From what you said, Andy, creating through in ordinance the enhanced employment area defined as it is, but not addressing in the time being the finance mechanism for it, or the occupation tax that was proposed, right?
This makes it eligible for that to take place. So
Makes it eligible, but does not authorize
Correct.
at this step.
Correct.
Okay.
That would come in subsequent actions.
Okay, okay, good. All right, any questions for Andy before we move on? Okay. If the property owners would like to come forward and make their presentation, please.
Mr. Mayor and Council, my name is Mike Bacon. I'm an attorney from Gothenburg, and I represent Dial Sunset Mall. Thank you for including this on your agenda tonight. The purpose of this request by Dial Sunset Mall is to make the project eligible. That's done by a flow-through bond. The flow-through bond is paid by an additional occupation tax on the taxable items. Those funds are used, don't go into anyone's pocket. They're to be used for improvements to the mall. By the end of the year, we're going to have Herberger's closed, which is 78,000 square feet of retail space in the mall that will become vacant. It's roughly $6 million in taxable sales in your community. In order to, it is a tougher business these days to keep a mall filled. And this process starts out with proving to other tenants that you have the wherewithal to make improvements to invite them to come to the mall. The owners currently have some prospects that would, we believe, generate more sales per square foot than the ones that they are losing. However, it requires significant investment to re-tenant that space. It is not done overnight. The way this process generally works is there's an annual convention in Las Vegas, which is recently passed. You meet with prospective tenants, show them the support of the community, and show them the spending patterns in the community. And as a result of that, they then negotiate to come aboard. They have to get that approved at their board meetings, and so you have 24 months probably elapse before you see activity there. However, it is successful in many cases where they show the community is behind us, they've levied an occupation tax, and are willing to support improvements to the mall. So that's the process that we would look at. Before, and you need to know that we had an extension for Herberger's negotiated right before they filed bankruptcy that would have kept them there. And so the previous ask was going to be, let's focus on the exterior and more enhancements. That has changed with the failure of the group to keep Herberger's open. So the focus now will be getting a new tenants in that space and making it available so that it can be occupied. That would include a loading dock and some other things. The Economic Development Subcommittee was very gracious and very pointed in asking some questions. I would like you to know that on the way home, phone calls were made about the roof and those other items. So that's currently being reviewed, and corrective actions being taken. So we have submitted a proposed redevelopment agreement to your bond council, but that's kind of going to get set aside, and we'll have to redraft that based on new information. Be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Bacon. Any questions?
You said you have some current prospects. Are any of those really strong prospects, or can you speak to any of those without mentioning names, like how many that you're talking to?
They're talking to a number. They have some targets, but to say anything now, it would just be way premature. But we think we can get significantly more dollars sales per square foot out of those tenants than the current one. So, but it would be a derelict of me to go much further than that. And who they have now may change before they get the process completed. So it's an ongoing process to keep these keep these spaces filled. The internet has provided interesting challenges, so.
We did get to review some of the plans that were in place before tonight, and you said that they've been revamped. In what way are you looking at doing different things to the structure itself and more towards the facilitating people coming in, or what was revamped?
The focus is going to be on the 78,000 square feet, and that's going to be divided and made more usable for the new tenants, so there'd be more than one retailer in that space. We'd also have to, a big piece is a separate loading dock behind there that would have to be installed. That wasn't previously contemplated. We will still work on a new entrance, but primarily the funds would be driven towards, let's get this big dark spot lit up with a number of retailers. You are a fortunate community in that you still have J.C. Penney's. I live 35 miles from one that lost J.C. Penney's, and I'm not sure there's a place to buy men's underwear anymore in North Platte. So it's a struggle. Any other questions?
The financing mechanism proposed works, how? Just for the clarification for the public?
Sure. So the community would issue a occupation tax bond. That scares a lot of folks, but it's really a pass-through bond. So it would have to be purchased by the developers. The developers would take that bond to their lender and say, we want to borrow money against this bond. The bond payments would be paid off at the 1% sales taxes people make their purchases. This money is not going to just go sit in their account. They're going to have to prove before they access that fund that they have spent those dollars in an appropriate way in the mall to rehab. So there would be more tax on your purchase there, but hopefully at the end of the day, have a better shopping experience and more opportunities to keep people still coming into your community to spend funds. No liability on behalf of any of the citizens of your city. The only liability for the city is to take the money you receive and pay it on the bond. So that will be work for your staff.
So the community knows that if anything would happen and the bond didn't get paid, the city's not held responsible. It's not their tax dollars. It's
No,
not
it's the dial mall people who are on the hook. Right, exactly.
So, Mike, since the financing of this is orchestrated and coordinated by the existing tenants on the property, one of the questions I've gotten about this is the level of tenant support for this plan. Can you speak to that, the communication with the existing tenants? Whether there's any rights, that are willing to be vocal in support of what you're planning to do?
I personally have not met with them, but management and mall management has met with almost all of the tenants, or at least their local representatives. There's significant support because you really need a big draw in that mall. And if you don't have that draw, the sales starts going down, people go away. We hope to have a very strong showing at the next step to indicate to you that there is support for those folks. We thought it'd be premature right now, but will there be some that might not like it? Perhaps, because they think this is going to challenge their sales. Right now, the plan would not be to impose that tax prior to the Christmas shopping season, so that there's no conflict there, so it'd be after that season that we would ask it to be imposed.
Is there a confidence level that the recruitment of new retail that you're talking about can be facilitated without the broader set of improvements, both exterior and interior, that you originally proposed? Because that was one of the arguments made early on, that, you know, the chicken and egg concept, that it was hard to recruit new if improvements weren't made to the existing structure.
It is extremely difficult. I'll let Mr. Vickery address that directly, but it's extremely difficult to sell an old property with large vacancy. But this is Josh Vickery, who is the member of Dial Management Group, and I'll let him address that issue.
Hello, Mayor and Council. To answer that question, typically what happens with a retailer is they look at your market first and see if the population can have a draw to their store. And second, they look at the property. And what they look for is upgrades, and then they put it on a priority list. I can't remember how many Herbergers went dark, but I think it's over 300. And so these big box retailers have a choice to go to different markets. They're going to go to the ones with enhanced, one, that are occupied, and two, that have enhanced shopping experience. So in these deals with the tenants we're talking to, which are national tenants, that typically we see cities really want these tenants. They're the tenants that are thriving. So, but the deals are small. I mean, they're slim on rents. So, and they're very expensive to get done. So that's why we're asking for some help.
So the promise of improvements, not only on the 78,000 square feet that you're talking about, but the structure throughout, is alluring to the prospects that you're talking about.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. And we still plan on, and I think we have a slide of the exterior entrance of the mall. This is a conceptual design of the Herberger space and several vacant spaces we have in the back. We're hoping that by bringing in these national tenants, that'll open up the boulevard side of the mall to other tenants as well. Typically, it causes a domino effect with tenancy. And this is a conceptual drawing from our architect of what we want it to look like on the front. We're still planning on doing this.
Okay.
So the money being used for the re-tenancy is just the money from the EEA is a small portion of what's going to be spent.
So, and Joshua, we've all recognized that the nature of retail is changing nationally, not just here. The prospects you're speaking of fit the pattern of retail, of the retail sector now that is doing well.
Yes.
Correct.
You can look up who's expanding right now, and it's a small list, and those are the people we're talking to.
Yeah, I think just from some of the discussions I've had about this, there's a recognition that the mall is significantly important to the retail economy here and the broader economy, but that given the changes in retail that we're seeing, that there needs to be a new focus on recruitment and adjusting to those changes. And that focus on recruitment needs to meet the needs of the community and the broader market.
I think the loss of Herbergers, I mean, it hurts. But there aren't very many places in one of the best locations in town that have that much square footage So we're looking at it as a real opportunity. These are tenants that we couldn't go after before. We didn't have the space.
Any further questions? Okay. Any other discussion on this? Questions or comments from the council?
Well, Your Honor, I was on that subcommittee, and I liken this, even though, it's noted as an occupation tax, it's, to me, it appears to be something that's similarly run in the downtown business district. Those people are charged real estate tax down there that, they're passing that through to their customers too. And so this helps this side of the retail stay competitive also that way. So it's not, it may sound out of the ordinary, but it really isn't. So, and I think the history of it shows that it's been used in many other locations, so.
That's a good point. I think another point to make is that this is a process. We're not necessarily rushing headlong into this. This is a step in opening the door to making this possible, but it's a measured step in taking into consideration all that we need to consider to make such a move. So, anything else before we go to vote? Okay, with that, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, Resolution 2018-29 is adopted.
Okay, item number 23, I'd look for a motion to consider approval of ordinance number 5548, annexing a tract of land generally located along South Victory Road and Highway 35 in the southwest quarter of Section 25, Township 24 North, Range 1, west of the 6th PM, Madison County, Nebraska. Ordinance number 5548 passed on first reading at the May 21st City Council meeting.
I'll offer for consideration ordinance number 5548.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. And to refresh our memory on this, Mike?
Mayor, Council, this is a tract of land that's east of South Victory Road and west of Highway 35 and north of 275. And this is being annexed to develop a 160 unit multifamily development. And the tenants are requesting that they are annexed and so that they can be made eligible for TIF funds.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Any questions, council? Okay, fairly significant new multifamily housing development that would come into city limits. Any discussion, council, on this? Okay, if not, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5548 carries on second reading only.
Okay, item number 24, I'd look for a motion to consider approval of change order number 1 with Rutchins Construction for the sewer improvements 2017-1 Cottonwood Street from Nebraska Avenue North, 344 feet. Project resulting in a net increase of $46,607.62.
Your Honor, I move consideration of change order number 1.
Second. Okay, and Mike, can you give us some background on this, please?
Mayor, Council, this is what's a sanitary improvement. We were replacing a sanitary line of Cottonwood from Nebraska north, and one of the items that had to be changed was an item for one of the connections didn't connect as they were expecting, and they discovered a new variation on the connection, so they had to connect it with a Y. And then on top of everything, the pavement was in bad condition, so we had to remove more pavement than was necessary. And while we were at it, we noticed that the intersection was in very bad condition. And we decided to use some of the funds that we were saving from the overlays that we had removed from our projects that we were going to use for other projects to use for this intersection. So once we replaced that, we also had to replace all the curb ramps by 88 code. We had to do all that. So everything was updated at that intersection. So that's what we did.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions, council? If none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Okay, item number 25, I'd look for a motion to consider approval of a contract with Manelli Wagner and Associates Incorporated for engineering services for the Fifth Street and Corporation Gulch Culvert Replacements Project, resulting in a lump sum fee of $10,000.
So moved, Your Honor. Second.
Mike, once again, please.
Mayor, Council, this is a consideration for for an improvement down on Fifth Street, down toward Tahazua, and it's on South Fifth. It's Corporation Gulch goes underneath, and it currently only has 2 6-foot culverts going underneath it, and upstream from there, there are much larger culverts. And during the 2010 flood, the water overran that street, and even currently at high water events, we had a lot of backing up there. And so we are looking at replacing this with an improvement. We're going to stick with culverts because that will prevent us from going to the Corps, because when you remove culverts and replace them, you don't have to seek a Corps permit. So we're asking that we use culverts to replace so that we can prevent having it going through the permitting process. So that is what we're requesting.
Okay. Comments on that? Okay. Please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Okay, that concludes this meeting of the Norfolk City Council.
Okay, hold on, now I can.